Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Income is the Outcome, where we believe it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined by Tim Whistler, who is the founder and president of the Whistler Agency. We've got a great show for you today. The title of today's show is Refinancing Your Retirement. Now, what does that even mean? And most importantly, what could it mean for you? You're going to want to stay with us to find out. Tim, my friend, always good to be here with you. How are you this week?
I'm well, Kristen. It's always great to be here with you as well.
Well, thank you. We were just talking before today's show about this concept of refinancing your retirement, and this is a very timely conversation. We're going to get into why that is. It's interesting because typically when folks hear the term refinance, they might think about doing so in lower interest rate environments. We are always looking as consumers for ways to stretch our dollars, and maybe that's the good time to refinance your car or refinance your home. But what's interesting is we have been in a higher interest rate environment for a while now. We know that the Fed has started to come down a little bit on interest rates, but did you know that this is an optimal time for you to consider refinancing your retirement before rates go down any lower? That's what we're going to be discussing today. So Tim, I'd first love for you to share with our viewers, what does this term refinance your retirement even mean? You
know, like you said before, it's all about interest rates. As they fluctuate, you know, it can change how we have our dollars, where should they be. But, you know, if you look back a little bit at history, you know, up until, you know, when the 2008 market crash occurred, interest rates were a little bit higher. The market crash occurred, and then now since 2008 up until recently, interest rates were pretty low. So at that time, people that were entering into retirement or in retirement, they kind of allocated their portfolio in a low interest rate environment. So all of a sudden now, you know, this is where I think it's applicable, because maybe our portfolio is still kind of allocated towards that low interest rate environment. Interest rates are higher than they were before. Now they're starting to kind of slip a little bit. But I just think it gives people an opportunity to maybe sit back down, refinance the retirement because of the new interest rates that we're in, as opposed to where we were at just a few years ago.
Yeah, and so that's the key, right? Is understanding how to take advantage of these opportunities that exist in the current environment that we're in.
That's right. You know, because when interest rates fluctuate, it can affect people differently. Like, for example, I heard this saying not too long ago, and I just want to borrow this statement. It's what can be a saver's dream can be a borrower's nightmare. So we're not talking about refinancing your loans right now. That's not what Chris and I are going to talk about, because, you know, you look at mortgage rates. Mortgage rates have nearly tripled just in a very short amount of time. Auto loan rates are higher. I just remember the current car that I drive, I bought back in 2020. It's a used vehicle. I went in there, I had the idea of what I wanted to buy, and I thought, okay, I'm going to pay cash for this thing because I wanted to leverage my dollars. And the gentleman said, well, do you want to look up financing? I said, I don't know, do I? He goes, well, it's like 2.75%. I'm like, well, yeah, why would I not do that, right? That's not today. Interest rates are higher. Another very, very sad fact is the fact that, you know, credit card deficits now in America. Credit card debt has now exceeded $1 trillion. So, you know, we're not talking about maybe refinancing things that have a loan. We're talking about refinancing retirement so that we can adjust some of our portfolio to maybe take advantage of some of these higher interest rates that we're currently realizing. And
why does someone really want to pay attention to doing this right now?
Because right now, there is such a thing called fixed buckets. And what we mean by that is basically you have the opportunity to have a product, if you will, that has a set/determined rate of return, interest rate. So for example, I'll just share a story with you. One of my clients, I've been working with these folks for a number of years now. Great relationship, wonderful people. They're both still full-time working full-time. But here just recently, I got an email from him, and he said, hey, no big deal, but just give us a call whenever you can. And I said, sure. So we scheduled the time, and basically what happened was his current employer was bought out. So he goes, I said, no, does that affect your job? He goes, no, it's actually going to be a good thing. The new company bought us out. The pay structure is a little bit different, so this was actually a good thing. But I need to figure out what I need to do with my 401k. He goes, I really don't want to roll it to a new one because it was really neat. He said, because Tim, you taught us that as we get closer to retirement, we might want to tamper down potential volatility. So like, wonderful. We made that connection. Right? I was thankful for that. So he said, so what should we do? I said, well, let me put together a couple of things here for you, and let's get back together. So my thought was, let's take advantage of the interest rates and where they're currently at. And so what we did for him was we wanted it to be in a short-term vehicle because of the fact that we're still approaching retirement. But we locked in a set rate of return for 2 years in a bucket with no fees and no volatility.
Wow.
And at that point, it locked him in at like 4.55%. Now, you're dealing with a 401k that was in excess of $350,000. That's a sizable amount of money that's coming to him each year. And then what happened? That most recent product just had a renewal. So at that point, we did the same thing. We reassessed.
Right.
The interest rates actually now went up.
Wow.
So he did the same thing. So the same product that he had before, again, no fees, no volatility. Now he's earning 4.8% for the next 2 years.
Wow.
So what's going to happen at the end of that 2 years? We're going to reevaluate. Where are we at? Because like you said in the intro, the Fed right now is starting to adjust rates. So the rate environment is always in motion. It always fluctuates. So the point of it is, the reason why we think this is so critical now for you to take advantage of something like this is because you can take an advantage of a product just like my client did, where you have a set interest rate payable for a set number of years, and then at the end of that term, again, we can reassess what does the interest rates look like from that point. If they're lower than what they were before, maybe we should put them somewhere else. But the point of it is, I just think it's important for us to understand that maybe this might be a new term for you, but the concept is not new to us. This is why we look at portfolios, reposition them, rebalance them to basically make sure that the current environment matches kind of where we should be with our funds.
Right, and this is why these plans are active and living and breathing, right? You're constantly monitoring these things for your clients to see how you can take advantage of these opportunities. And I know my ears perked up, I'm sure our viewers did as well. Just to clarify, you were talking about being able to use a product that was fixed, guaranteed, with no fees. I think that's huge. And I'm sure some people listening might be going, that sounds a little too good to be true, right?
Well, for this particular client, what we were utilizing was we were utilizing one of the members of the annuity family.
Okay.
And this particular one, now again, we've talked before that there are a couple of annuities out there that are not good. So, again, when we go online and we Google that word annuity, prepare for
an onslaught, right?
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I understand that because there are some products out there, the number one, that are abused, misused by professionals, and sometimes consumers don't fully understand all the details inside of those products.
Right, all the fine print.
Oh, it's all there. So therefore, we only really believe that 2 of the 4 members of the annuity family are really worth looking at and worth exploring. It's not a one-size-fit-all.
Sure.
But in this particular case here, we wanted to completely eliminate the potential of volatility. We wanted to do this without any fees whatsoever, which was great.
Right.
And that rate of return was there for him each of those first 2 years, and then here we're going to do it again because he's not quite yet to retirement. His wife's a little bit closer than he is.
Okay.
But he's like, I don't need this money right now because we've got other funds. Let's do this again for the next 2 years, lock in that rate of return. And basically what that was called for him is what's called a guaranteed, a multi-year guaranteed annuity. That's what it is. It's basically just a fixed annuity. It's like a CD on steroids, if you will.
Yeah. No, I love that. And what you're saying, too, about this timing of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for folks who are able to take advantage while we're in a higher interest rate environment, if they're able to lock themselves in at these higher rates, then when the Fed does continue to lower interest rates, it won't matter because they're already locked in, correct?
That's exactly right. They are locked in. So, in that 2-year period of time between here 2025 and in 2027, when his current policy will renew, the Fed's going to do what the Fed's going to do. Interest rates are going to do what they're going to do.
Right.
So at the end of that 2-year term, if interest rates are lower, he'll get that renewal letter and he'll say, okay, here was your previous 2-year rate, here's our new rates. If they're lower, no problem. We'll just reassess because maybe it's time to go back to a different direction.
Right.
But it does not matter. That's the whole purpose of what Kristen said earlier. Why is now the right time? Because now is the right time to possibly look at a fixed product, getting a guaranteed rate of return for a period of time, and that can be a really good ally for the overall plan for what, again, no matter where we're at with the timing of our retirement and whatever we need our assets to be doing for us to generate that income.
Well, no doubt, I'm sure we have folks watching right now that this might be new news to you, or they're even going, gosh, this sounds amazing. I would love to take advantage of these opportunities that exist while we are in this higher interest rate environment. What would you say to someone who's curious and wants to learn more?
I'd say this is a great opportunity for you to pick up the phone, scan the QR code, dial the phone number on your screen. A member of our team will reach out to you, we'll schedule a time that fits your availability, and we'll have what's called a get acquainted conversation. Right, it's one of those conversations where I think a lot of people come in with some uncertainty. Hey, I'm going to share my finances with some strange guy. I don't know that I'm comfortable doing that. Well, we're going to make it as comfortable for you as possible because all it is a conversation. We're going to understand where you're at, where your timeline is at in relation to your retirement, if you're already retired, and let's just have the conversation, look at the portfolio, and see if maybe there's some changes we need to make to take advantage of maybe what we're in right now is a higher interest rate environment.
Wonderful. Tim, thank you so much. I'm excited for folks to get connected with you to really figure out what this means for you and your situation. Again, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation with Tim and the Whistler Agency to see how they can help and serve you. So to schedule your complimentary written financial plan meeting, all you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 888-992-7829. Or if you'd like to connect online, you can simply pull out your smartphone, open up the camera app, just click and scan the QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from the Whistler Agency will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation on refinancing your retirement. We're going to look at why making changes during this higher interest rate environment can be so beneficial and why not taking advantage of these opportunities can be really problematic. Stay with us.
So we're based out of Peoria, Illinois. I literally just opened this office literally about a month ago because the last 6 years I've been working out of my home office. And that was for just family reasons. My wife and I have 2 sons and they're now starting to get to that age where they're about ready to fly the coop. So it's just good to be with them for these last few years. We are on the main level of a 3-story professional office building. So as soon as they enter through the large double doors, they immediately turn to their left and there's the entrance to the Whistler Agency. So we're very easily accessible for people, right off the street. You park in the parking lot, walk the sidewalk, you come in the door and you're right there. And when they come in, there'll be a couple little seats there in the small little entryway, if you will. Most people aren't really waiting to get to me. I'm not like a doctor's office or anything like that. But then we've got a little receptionist area and then I walk them through our conference room. The conference room table is actually a dining room table for my grandmother. I just bring a little bit of the element of family in my practice and just kind of have our conversation right there. Did you ever think your own retirement would be shared with our government? It's true. Your traditional 401k, IRA, pension, or similar retirement accounts are in partnership with the IRS. Simply put, they want their tax dollars and you have them. With our latest tax calculator, you can plug in your own number while sitting at home. To find out what your future tax liability might be, scan the QR code or go to retirementtaxreview.com.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Tim Whistler, and today we are discussing the concept of refinancing your retirement, what that means, and most importantly, what it could mean for you. Before the break, I mentioned that taking advantage of this higher interest rate environment can bring many positives into your financial plan, but not taking advantage of these opportunities can be problematic. So Tim, I know we were laughing during the break. We were like, let's start with the bad news and get that out of the way first, right? So what are some of the problems of not taking advantage of these opportunities currently?
We talked a little bit at the beginning of the segment about how interest rate fluctuations can really impact things differently. And you think back to the old adage of having a portfolio that's 60-40, stocks to bonds, right? Because if one's down, the other one should be up. If one's down, the other one's up, the other one's down, et cetera.
Right.
We're not seeing that type of trend right now. And so I think that's something for people to understand. Like for example, when interest rates are a little bit higher, sometimes those stocks that are kind of designated for growth struggle a little bit more.
That magnificent 7, if you will, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, we're seeing a stock market right now that's driven really by 7 companies, while other companies, the Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P, some of those companies are struggling, laying people off, closing doors. So sometimes that's where the negatives of higher interest rate environments can come in, and sometimes that can wreak havoc on somebody's portfolio.
Right. And when we say the Magnificent 7, we mean a lot of these tech companies that are booming, right?
Yeah, that's 7. The movie itself is great, Magnificent 7, but we're talking about NVIDIA, Apple, Meta, Google, Amazon, Tesla, and Microsoft. These are the kind of the Magnificent 7 you were referring to.
Yeah. So obviously higher interest rates can provide some challenges for folks, but there's actually a lot of positives, and that's what we're kind of talking about today, is how to take advantage of this higher interest rate environment to set yourself up for success with your retirement. So let's talk about the positives now. What are some of these positives that these higher interest rates can have?
I think it just, again, offers that opportunity to maybe reposition some of the portfolio that we have right now and take advantage. A lot of people like to have that peace of mind by having some dollars at their local bank in a CD. Okay, well, I think most people who are CD owners are aware that interest rates are higher.
Right.
So refinance those things, and that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
I think another thing that's good to look at is take a look at the portfolio overall. Because one thing that we always like to make sure that we help clients understand is that we do not want to have too many dollars exposed to volatility and too many dollars exposed to underperformance. So maybe sometimes we need to maybe shift some things around a little bit. I think that's something to consider. In the first segment, we talked about the story of the fixed annuity and what that was doing for our client. What we're also seeing that's happening in the other type of annuity that we sometimes share with clients is what we call the fixed indexed annuity. And again, that's the annuity that kind of provides the opportunity for market-like growth with no volatility, and the base policy has no fees. But if we think maybe the market's a little unsteady, we can still put some dollars into that fixed bucket. And what we're seeing is that even inside that fixed index annuity, we're seeing that bucket of fixed rates being a little bit higher than what it was in the years past. So I think, again, this is a perfect time to maybe sit down, maybe review. Doesn't mean we have to make any type of drastic change.
Sure, right.
But we can certainly say, okay, this is the current environment we're in. Does my portfolio kind of align with where we're at? And if not, what do we shift around?
Yeah, that's so beautifully stated. And, you know, I was in a conversation yesterday, and it just reminded me that not all financial advisors out there are having these kinds of conversations with their clients, this concept of taking advantage of the current interest rate environment that we are in and looking for ways to, as we are sharing today, refinance your financial plan. So, Tim, if someone's out there watching and they're going, you know, maybe they've already been working with another financial advisor, but they're not having this kind of conversation with their advisor, I know that you're really passionate about offering a complimentary second opinion just to look over someone's situation and see if, in fact, if everything's on track and if what they have is currently in their best interest. What would you say to someone who's going, yeah, I think I might need one of those?
Well, again, you know, we know that statement of, you know, we can't get the second opinion from the person who gave us the first one. And again, we're not here to sever relationships. That is not our position. In the healthcare profession, if your doctor says, look, I want you to come in and we're going to do this procedure next Tuesday, you're probably going to get a second opinion. That's not a slight to the physician, but it's just something that you're making sure that's the right thing for you. Why not apply that same principle to your financial health? And what we want to do for folks is just like, that's why we wrote the book. The book has the undertone, the subtitle of, it's a retirement plan based upon income, not if-come. And therefore, folks, you know, can have a plan that's not really based upon maybe hopes. We hope everything's going to be okay. We can provide them that plan that we know things can be okay despite what's going on with interest rates, stock market, and maybe anything else that can possibly be a detriment to our overall plan. So we just invite you to pick up the phone, jump on our calendar. Let's have the Get Acquainted conversation. We'll take a look at the assessments, because even at the end of that conversation, one of two things is going to happen. But I think both are positive, because if things are right where they need to be, now you've got a second set of eyes that have looked at it, looked at everything. Now you know you're still good. If not, we'll just make some corrections if we need to. Kind of make sure that there's anything that's wrong with the portfolio, but maybe we can fill in some parts that may possibly be incomplete.
Yes, and I love how you phrase it that way, because that's really what can often happen, right?
That's exactly right, yep.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much. And you mentioned this awesome book that Tim has written, License to Spend, a retirement plan based on income as opposed to if-come. If you would like your complimentary copy, he will gladly give you one when you come in and meet to have your complimentary written financial plan, and that can be part of the second opinion that you are needing. We want you to have the confidence that you have a full financial plan in place to take advantage of the opportunities that exist and that will work no matter what's going on in our economy and in today's economic climate. So we encourage you to reach out. You can call the number on the bottom of your screen, 888-992-7829, or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more on the subject of refinancing your retirement right after this.
The way I view this, numbers are amoral. It's the people behind the numbers that I like to learn about. What does retirement look like for them? What are they going to do with these numbers? How long do they think these numbers need to last them? You know, what type of legacy plan do they want to leave for their kids and their grandkids? That's kind of that first dynamic of the conversation, is more just along the lines of, you know, getting acquainted and just kind of discovering what it is that we're working with. If they've ever sat through a timeshare presentation, this is completely the opposite. There is no sales pressure whatsoever, no obligation, there's no risk involved. It's just a simple 1-hour conversation conversation. I think a successful retirement is all about having a plan, because if you think about the unfortunate situations where professional athletes go bankrupt just a few years after they end their professional career, these people have earned tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars, and then they're bankrupt. I just firmly believe that happened because there was no plan. Not only just for the immediate, but also kind of for the foreseeable future, and we can always reflect back on that plan and make sure we're on the right track. Did you know your retirement isn't entirely yours? That's right. Your traditional 401k, IRA, or pension is actually shared with the IRS. And when it's time to withdraw, they'll be waiting for their cut in taxes. To find out how much you may owe, try our easy-to-use tax calculator. Just scan the QR code or visit retirementtaxreview.com.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Tim Whistler, and today we have been talking about this concept of refinancing your finances, refinancing your retirement, and what that could mean for you. And really, Tim, as I think about this conversation, and if we had to sum it all up, what we're talking about is hopefully helping folks to put themselves into a potentially better financial situation. And after all, better is just better, right? That's the whole name of the game here.
Better is better. And just to kind of have some fun kicking this part of it off, I think back to the current car I drive versus my first car that I drive.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this story.
So, yeah. So I'm taking you back a few years, a few decades, when back in 1990, bought my first car at 21. It was a 1986 Chevrolet Chevette.
Okay.
Yes, some of you might have to actually Google what type of car that even is, right? But I bought it from some friends of mine. I paid $2,200 for this thing.
And what color was it? I need to visualize this.
It was tan.
Okay.
It had some very, very unique decals across the bottom of the car that spelled out Chevette.
Okay.
Like in yellow, orange. It was not really attractive type of a looking car, but I was excited about it. It had the little hatchback in the back.
Yeah.
I spent a little bit of money, put in the Alpine cassette deck.
Oh, nice, nice. Got to have those cassettes, right?
Put in the Pioneer speakers. I mean, I was ready to go, right, with this thing. Little 4-speed. No, it had no cruise control.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
No power. Everything was crank, adjusting windows. I mean, I'm not a mechanic. That's what my oldest son does.
Okay.
But, I took care of the maintenance of the car with everything except for, doing the brakes or the clutch. It was a good car. Sold it like 4 years later for like $600.
Okay.
So, I mean, over the course of 4 years, I had a great time with it. It cost me like $1,600 from buy to, purchase to sale. Car I drive today is a little bit different, right?
Okay.
It's got a little few more bells and whistles, right? It kind of spoils you. I can look at the windshield, there's my speedometer, heated seats. I can connect with my phone, listen to podcasts, whatever. I mean, it's just a better vehicle.
Right.
But what does that mean for retirement, right? Just kind of sharing kind of a goofy personal story with everybody. Better is better from the standpoint of how it can apply to our retirement plan. What we started off with may not be what we need to have today. And I think a lot of times unfortunately, this happens to a lot of folks in retirement who are married. The loss of a spouse. And just a story comes to mind of just a recent conversation I had with a lady who was so gracious to share with me how much she enjoys our episodes, our TV shows. She told me that. She goes, and then we went to your website. She goes, I listened to a couple of podcasts. She goes, I just feel like I've known you for all this time because she's engaged with us. And that just warmed my heart to know that.
Yes.
But then she shared the story of before I met her, just a few months prior to our first conversation, she lost her husband. And as the case, when husband and wife go into retirement together, that plan is for the two of them.
Right. Right.
Now all of a sudden one passes away. That plan is not where we need to be. We need to maybe make some changes to make the plan to be better. So when we sat down, we walked through it. Okay, now this is a new chapter of life. Things are going to be different now. You're going to have a different tax bracket now.
Yep.
Social Security number is going to be different. So now we go through the steps of creating the better plan applicable for her. Keeping her still on that guardrail or on that lane, if you will, that she had when she was walking originally with her husband, but now that he's gone and she's on this path by herself, now we've taken the time, put together the plan that's better for her now in this new chapter of life.
That's a beautiful way to think of it. And Tim, as you were talking, I'm going to take a minute to brag on you because I know you're too humble to do this yourself. But as I was thinking about the second opinion and how it's just a different season of life and what better could could be better for someone. I think so much of our financial services industry, I know this has been true throughout my decade plus of being a part of it, is focused on the accumulation years and on growing your money in that phase of life, which is important. We need that. And there's a lot of good advisors out there that specialize in that season of life. But the advisor who got you here may not be the right advisor to continue that journey with you. And I think of how specialized you are in helping folks build retirement income plans. You help people make this important transition from those accumulation years into the distribution years and beyond. And so I think, that we talked about having a second opinion. I can't think of a better individual to be able to sit down with folks, be able to meet them where they're at, provide that with compassion and knowledge, and then say, okay, this is on track, or this is what we could do to put you in an even better situation. And I just wanted to point that out because it takes a different skill set, a different mindset to be able to help people successfully make that transition.
Well, I'm truly humbled by your kind gesture. I appreciate that, Kristen, very much. This is truly a remarkable position that we're in. I absolutely love what I do. I can't believe I get to do this every single day. I'm so blessed to be surrounded by an incredible team of people that I can rely on. Whenever I put together that initial plan, I always want to get my team's opinion involved as well, making sure that this is customized, it's crafted, it's exactly what the client's looking to do. We're fulfilling that fiduciary responsibility for them. But what a joy it is to be able to help clients really successfully achieve what their ultimate goal is, and that's just enjoying retirement, right? I mean, there's obviously going to be things in life that's going to come our way and maybe throw a curveball every now and then. But my goodness, just the peace that it can provide, having that map, knowing that, okay, we have planned for days like this.
Yes.
Good or bad. We can take advantage of days like this, good or bad. And when you get that type of feedback, when I reflect back to my book, and my favorite part of the book is the client testimonials, real life people, just like you folks watching today, sat right where you're at, expressing some concerns. Or do we have enough saved for retirement? I just lost my spouse. Now what do I do? They were so gracious to share their experience of what life was like before working with us, why they chose us, and what life has been like since. And that's what really was such a wonderful joy to be able to share that inside the book. And again, I just appreciate your compliment and kind words, because we truly do love where we're at and want to be able to help as many people as we can.
Absolutely. Well, I have so enjoyed this conversation with you today on refinancing retirement, and I know that our viewers, probably you have enjoyed this as well, and we hope that you have found it to be helpful and valuable. That's how it's intended each and every week. We encourage you to reach out if any of this has resonated with you, or if you're already working with another financial advisor and they're not having these kinds of conversations with you, it's time for you to get a second opinion. And you can do so by calling the number you see on the bottom of your screen and booking your time to receive your complimentary written financial plan. 888-992-7829 is the number to call. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Income is the Outcome.